Alright, now that we've made our wine with the yeast starter and the juice, put it into the brewing bucket. You leave the mixture for approximately 4 to 5 days. I usually leave it for 5 days. Now this is day 2, and as you can see, there's usually most buckets will have a lid with a rubber with a hole. Periodically, like in the evenings, take off the rubber for about, I'd say, like 20 minutes and let the gases out. And I usually every day, or at least day 2 and the last day, add an extra cup of sugar and stir it around, because you'll have some of the sugar will sink to the bottom. And usually it's good to just open the lid for like 20 minutes and smell it. And you'll usually be able to tell if anything is going wrong by the smell. That you will smell when you're making the juice the way the grape juice smells. And then one time I had like a sour smell, but it went away after a few days. So now I will just demonstrate opening the lid and adding a cup of sugar. Now it's very important to make sure that you sterilize your instruments using boiling water, as I said before. Now with this, we can this particular mixture, it smells very, very grapey, so we know it's still fine. It's not yet bubbling. You'll be able to tell by the last day, this is only the second day, that it should be like bubbling. You should see it forming. So I'm just going to take this, I sterilized it already, and just stir it a little bit. But yes, it smells very, very grapey, and we can tell that it needs to ferment more. So I'm just going to add 1 cup of sugar. So probably we can tell from the color of this particular juice that it'll be darker. Occasionally some of the concentrated grape juices that I've bought, the juice is fairly light, usually because it's older juice. So with older juice, it's typically lighter. So I'll just show it for the camera. That's how it looks. And then I added my cup of sugar, as you saw, and then just stir it. Smell it, leave the lid open for 20 minutes, and you should be good. And then I will show on day 5 how to transfer the liquids to the demijohn. Actually, it's day 5 of the first fermentation, and I opened the brewing bucket. And as we can see, it's quite yeasty, and this is a sign that it's ready. If it's not like this on day 4, leave it for an extra day or 2 and it'll eventually be like this. So all you'll need to do is stir it around with a sterilized, spoon or stick, and let it sit for a bit, and sterilize your demijohn. Now what I like to do is usually sterilize it in a bathtub, but the sink will work as well too. So first you just rinse it thoroughly with hot water, and then I usually like to add a little bit of white vinegar, about 1 inch, on the bottom, and swirl it around and let it sit for about half an hour, just to let all the residue that'll sometimes stick to the bottom, it'll allow that to lift up a little bit, and then thoroughly rinse it out, and just use, normal sort of soap, and rinse it and rinse it. You have to be careful that you don't want to have any soap left in the demijohn. So you will just sterilize it with boiling water. Now I like to do that about twice, just to be very thorough. And then move the demijohn around and look inside to make sure there is absolutely no soap or any sort of grime left. If there's any sort of grime, go back and do it again. And ideally you'll have like a brush. I don't have one, I don't find it necessary, but you can use a brush and go down and thoroughly clean it. Just make sure you're thorough, and to just look inside, like there, I don't see any soap or any sort of grime left. And then you'll be ready to transfer. Now I will sterilize the tube. Now, be sure that you have a long enough of a length of the tube, but just once again, add boiling water to both ends, dripping, being sure to use oven mitts, and thoroughly sterilize your tube as well. Once again, make sure everything is thoroughly sterilized. That is the main trick of winemaking. None of this otherwise is very complicated. Just be sure to thoroughly sterilize, and if it touches anything, you have to do it again, so it can be onerous if you're not careful. Now sterilize your airlock and plug, being sure to use, once again, boiling water, and have them ready in a bowl, and then you can move on to siphoning the juice from the brewing bucket into the demijohn. Okay, now I am ready to siphon the juice. So I have my tube ready, and then it's just a matter of putting the brewing bucket on a higher surface than the demijohn, usually just a couple of feet, and having a sufficient length of tube. Then sucking on this end of the tube in alignment with the hole, and allowing gravity to basically transfer using the tube. Now it would be easier to just use like a funnel and transfer the juice, but what you're trying to do with siphoning it into the tube is eliminate as much residue as possible. So that residue will sink to the bottom. So you'll have, at about this mark, all of this will sink to the bottom and will stay there. So that's why when I suggest when you're making like 20 liters to make about 23 liters of juice, to leave a little bit of leeway. That way as much residue is eliminated and stays at the bottom of this container. Later on you can use that residue to make vinegar. So here we go. And be careful to try and not spill. But as you can see now, it's just a matter of waiting and holding onto the tube. While the juice is transferring from the buckets to the demijohn, I like to prepare my airlock and plug. So I wash them in boiling water and soap, thoroughly clean them, and to avoid any hassles, just simply prepare it like this with the airlock inside the plug, and add boiling water, very hot water, inside the plug up to about that, and have it ready to go like this. Dry it off with a towel, and then once the transfer is complete, simply add the plug into the hole, and it should be fine. I've done it before where I've put the plug in the hole first and then added the airlock, and that's usually there's more hassles doing it that way. So okay, now we've finished transferring the wine from the brewing bucket to the demijohn. I usually like to have the wine go up to about there in the demijohn, maximum of about there, this line where you see where my finger is. So right now it's about here, and the reason for that is just because it'll start to bubble, and I've had incidences where the juice will bubble up and it will top out, and then you have to replace this. So just to give it a little bit of space, leeway, and that's about 19 or 20 liters, even with that amount of space left. And just be sure when you're adding the plug with the airlock that the ring inside is fairly dry, even though it's been boiled or sterilized, and make sure that the plug is dry, and then just insert. It's fairly easy, no hassle. And just be sure, watch within like 5 minutes that the water inside the airlock should be bubbling periodically, and it should be coming in like steady intervals. So we'll just watch here. And as you can see, it's bubbling, but not very aggressively. Later on, you should always periodically be checking to see that it's bubbling, and eventually it will I can see that it is bubbling, but only very slightly, that it should start to get more aggressive with the bubbling. So that's why you leave space, just so that it doesn't overflow. And then you're just left with the mess. You should have a little bit, I'd say about 1 inch or 2 inches left in your brewing bucket, and then this juice can be used to make vinegar. So I would just take So I just like to take the remainder of the juice that I didn't transfer to the demijohn, I would say that's about half a liter there of juice, and use it for making vinegar. So I just have a container with a funnel, and then I transfer the juice. Now, how I'm making the vinegar I will link to in the description box beneath the video, but basically all you have to do is make a mother, so add any kind of alcohol, so wine, beer, whatever, and let this sit for 2 weeks in a sunny spot, and then that will make a mother, which you can then reuse to make more. So just saving this juice. So just follow the instructions in the link that I provide. And on a final note, let the wine sit in the demijohn for about 6 weeks, and then it will be ready to bottle, which I will follow up with in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye.